That way the camels spit out the thorns of the darnel, whatever.
I know, I saw. It's great. Thank you. We're not done with that yet. All right. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Kalayim, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, and Beis, starting mamish on top of Daf Beis. We left off the middle of a question that Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi asked Rabbi Yirmiyah that it appears that our Mishnah only follows Rabbi Shmuel but Rabbi Yossi, which is not ideal, and it doesn't follow Shitas Rebbe. Rebbe is the redactor of the Mishnah. What Rabbi Shmuel but Rabbi Yossi and Rebbe are we referring to? So at the end of Daf Aleph Amid Beis, the Gemara quoted the Braisa concerning taking truma from yayin for chaymetz, or taking the truma from the vinegar for the wine. L'kula alma, we should not be toidim from something inferior for something superior. En toidimin min hara al hayafa. Yes, toidimin min hayafa al hara, but you can't be toidim from two species, one for the other. So Rebbe said you should not even take truma from wine over vinegar. Because Rebbe holds that wine and vinegar are two different species, even though the vinegar that we are referring to is wine vinegar, wine that became corrupted, that became vinegar. Rabbi Shmuel but Rabbi Yossi says that don't do it. Don't do from bad over good. And if you did from bad over good, b'di'eved, it's okay. And the Gemara made this gewaldige correlation, l'choira, that zunin, darnel, as the Gemara said, was wheat that was planted as wheat, and it mutated, it got corrupted, it became something other, something inferior, even though it's good for doves. So what? It's not food. The fact that the Mishnah allows you to plant it together sounds that when B comes from A became corrupted and turned into B, our Mishnah says it's still the same type. Rebbe, who says that you cannot be toidim from the wine, even though wine is superior for vinegar, is because l'chura Rebbe holds vinegar is completely another species. So it comes out that was the kasha. Is our Mishnah not like Rebbe? Is our Mishnah only Rabbi Shmuel but Rabbi Yossi? That was the question, just to get the names. That Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi asked Rabbi Yirmiyah. We're going to have a response in the Gemara. We will have enough time, God willing, to learn both the way the Maraf it's very cute almost, the way he understands the details of what happened. That's like a little piece of Agadah. That's the most Agadah that you get in Yerushalmi. The Pnei Moshe has an opposite way of understanding the interaction after the question. Bottom line is the Gemara will give an answer, and we will learn here in the Noise Kalim two ways of understanding the answer. Ultimately, like we said yesterday, don't put on the same track Kalayim and Trumas U'Maisros. There's this different logics, different criteriums behind each one as to how to define one species with two varieties or two complete different species. The way Chazal used that definition for Kalayim is not the same for Truma. What's used for Truma is not going to be used for Kalayim. We mentioned yesterday that one of the foundational differences between Kilei Zeroyim and Kilei HaKerem, of course, we know that this is Asur Bahana. One of the differences is that Kilei Zeroyim is mainly about appearances versus Kilei HaKerem. It's not just about appearances, it's that there has to be a physical space. We'll learn later details of how much between vegetables or grains from the vineyard for them not to take nourishment from the same place or from each other. And we'll see an application of by Kilei Zeroyim, it's about appearances. It's about Marasayim. We'll see an application of it. By the way, we asked yesterday, when we learned the Mishnah, that why did the Mishnah say twice the words Einam Kalayim Zebozeh? Like L'chura, the Mishnah spoke about 6 plants. Actually, 6 Shidduchim, 12 plants, right? Groups of 6. And the Mishnah says, regarding all of them, Einam Kalayim Zebozeh, which are the final words of the Mishnah. The Mishnah in the beginning says, Hachitim v'hazunim, Einam Kalayim Zebozeh. We'll see, not directly, but indirectly from today's Gemara, an answer for this question. Mamush Gavaldik. To understand why Rebbe wrote those words twice, All of that will be halacha aleph. On daf beis amud beis, we're going to begin halacha beis. I want you to know, guys, halacha beis and halacha gimel is mamish a continuation from halacha aleph, which means the Mishnah will continue to list additional pairs of plants to which the Isur of Kalayim does not apply. In the first Mishnah, halacha aleph, what we learned yesterday, the Mishnah gave you 6 pairs, total of 12 plants. In halacha beis, we're going to learn 14 plants, 7 pairs. But regarding the first, there'll be a machlekes tanoim, and that will lead us into a topic. We'll see how far we'll get, and that is if something itself is a crossbreed. Now, guys, remember, even though kilei zeroim in Eretz Yisrael was also mido oiraisa, if someone made a crossbreed, you're allowed to eat it. Not only have anah, many items that we eat are crossbreeds. What we will have a discussion is when you have a crossbreed, right? Does it become a category for itself? Then again, now going further for Kalayim.
You can take that one and mix it.
We will also be speaking about mutations, which is really what we said yesterday. I'm just getting the right word. That chitin became zunin, or that wine mutates into vinegar. When you have a mutation, I'm just giving you an example. If A mutated into B and B mutated into C, can you plant A and C together? Or do we say that since ultimately it came from the same thing, like chitim and zunim, I'm just going one step further. Chitim and zunim, you planted the chitim, and because of man's sinful behavior, the earth became corrupted. You put in one seed, something else comes out. It's called a mutation. And it's a bad mutation. What happens if there's a double mutation? Do we always say that since ultimately it originated from the same place, yechap the kasha? This is fascinating. That will be in the Gemara towards the end of the daf, maybe a little bit into daf gimel. We'll see how far we can get. But Nachamal, guys, just to remember the names of the players. That Rabbi Yaakov bar Zabdi was the one that asked Rabbi Yirmiyah, is our Mishnah only Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yosi? And what happens after you ask a question? So there's a lot that happens. So look inside over here. We're going to go first with the Marafulda, and then the opposite, the Pnei Moshe. The details. The Havel Mistakel Bey. Now we know what these words mean. It means that he was looking at him. Question is, who is looking at whom? Who was staring at whom? So the Marafulda says, guys, on the top of Havel, Rabbi Yirmiyah, who was the teacher, who heard the question, was staring at the Talmud. Look inside the Marafulda, Rabbi Yaakov bar Zabdi. Why was he staring at him? Almost in disappointment. Al shehiksha kushya zois. Like, why are you asking this? Ki'ilu ain't a kushya legam. Not even a kasha. That's a teacher. You have a kasha. So the teacher gets upset at the Talmud. What are you even asking? Now I want you to see that the Pnei Moshe Mamish learns the opposite. The Hava Mustakel Bey means that Rabbi Yaakov bar Zabdi asked a question. He was expecting to get an answer immediately. Rabbi Yirmiyah was not giving him the answer. So having Mistakel Bey, who was staring at whom? It was the student. Look inside the top Pnei Moshe. I think we didn't learn yesterday Pnei Moshe, so we're introducing here in Kalayim the Pnei Moshe. That Rabbi Yaakov was looking at Rabbi Yirmiyah. Why was he staring at him? Because he didn't respond. Why didn't he respond? Saying the Kudah. Because Rabbi Yirmiyah felt it's a non-question. Both of them are coming to the same place. Question was asked, and the teacher felt it's not even a question that deserves to be answered. But a good student is not happy with that. I'm sorry that for you, you're 10, 20 steps ahead of me. I need an answer. So what happened was, Amarlei, here again, the Amarlei, who was speaking to whom? So according to the Pnei Moshe, Rabbi Yirmiyah, who was the one that was receiving the stare, right, as we just learned the Pnei Moshe. So he tells Rabbi Yaakov, Ma'at mistakel, what are you staring at me? Because I didn't answer you. I want you to bring a strap and whip yourself for asking such a foolish question. Why should I punish you? You punish you. And now, okay, but the problem is we don't know why. So says the Gemara, Taman, over there in the Baraisa that we just quoted, we're speaking about Maisenes. And over here, we're speaking about Kalayim. Now, we're going to learn both the Pnei Moshe that we're up to, and then we're going to learn the Rasharilio. It's very interesting. We have enough time. Each one has a whole different logic as to why would we be machalik between them. So the Pnei Moshe is 4 lines from the top. The Tama Lamaisis. Obviously, the Braisa spoke about Truma. So, Enachanami, Ula Truma. Upalik Rabbi, the reason why Rabbi argues with Rabbi Shmuel, the Rabbi Yossi, and Visvita Lay Rabbi holds in the Braisa, the Yayin V'choimitz, wine and vinegar that came from wine. Shnei Minim Heim. That's only concerning the dinim of Hafrasha. Well, fish a mafrishim in arala yafa. No, it's everyone holds lechatchila, even Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yossi. You should not take from vinegar for wine. Hilkach sviralei. Rabbi holds the afmin ayayin ala chaymitz ein tarmin keheche dolei asi litre men chaymitz ala yayin. No, it's be'emes. It's one species, but it's raha yafa. So Rabbi put such a geder in order for you never to end up taking from chaymitz the yayin. Don't even do yayin al chaymitz. That's the logic. I'm just finishing the Pnei Moshe. Kula al Mamoida. The Zunin is min chitim. Elo, like we said yesterday, shenifsadu got corrupted. You climb zemzeh. It's not the same species. That's the way the Pnei Moshe says, almost like it's like Gezeda. Look inside the Rashi Ilio. Rashi Ilio, the 4 lines from the top in the right column in the beginning of the line, right when the Gemara is saying what Rabbi Yirmiyah found it unimportant even to say, come on over there, Lamais. The Khan over here is Lekalayim Koloimer. The Gabe Kalayim, even Rebbe will be Moide the Hakal Menachot. So why by Kalayim is it different? So the Pnei Moshe says it's Gzeira. The Rashi Ilya says something much different. The Rashi Ilya says that for Hilchos Trumos, it's considered 2 different species. Why? The Tama de Rebbe, Gabe Truma, is explained in Mesechus Bava Basra, in Bavli, that Peidalo Damad Beis, Beperek Hasfino, that what? That the Kula Alma Nichaluhu B'Chamna, V'loi Nichaluhu B'Chala. As a rule, if people were able to choose, what would they pick, wine or vinegar? People would pick wine. By the way, even people that need vinegar, wine will become vinegar at some point. So they want wine. However, the Ika, this is an exception. The Nichalei B'Chala, some people, very few people, but some people will only want vinegar. If they need vinegar today, by the time wine turns to vinegar or whatever, do you need the vinegar or it's too late? So in other words, some people want this, some people want that. And this is concerning what topic is that important? By Mekach Memka. In other words, if I sell you something and I don't deliver the product that I sold, it's a Mekach Tos. The question is, whoever's in business understands that. The seller says, I gave you exactly. I gave you enough, close what you wanted. The buyer says, no. So by Mekach Memken, wine and vinegar are considered 2 different species. Rabbi says that the criterion of what is 1 or 2 species for the laws of Truma must be aligned with the laws of Mekach Memken. The Ika Koyen, the Nichalei B'Chaimet, same thing, because some Kahana want to get Chaimet, some Kahana want to get wine. So Rebbe actually holds, it's not just a Gedet. Rebbe actually holds, you finished the Radashali inside, that for Hilchos Truma, Yain and Chaimetz are 2 different categories. Masha Enkein, for Kalayim, you're not giving it to anyone, there's no recipient. So why would you correlate it with Mekach Memken? It's not. Zunim and Chitim are the same. On that level, Chaimetz and Yain is the same, but we're not planting it together. Okay. Develop. Says the Gemara, Omar Rabbi Yoina, says Rabbi Yoina, Ho Kain have a tzarech mistakel bay. Now again, if you're learning like the Marafulda, did Rabbi Yirmiyah, should he have steered at Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi? Let's just go with the Marafulda, because according to the Marafulda, that Rabbi Yirmiyah was the one doing the steering, the Gemara is asking the teacher, why were you steering? So that you should know that in the earlier generations, the other Chachamim also already mentioned the Braisa vis-a-vis our Mishnah. And in other words, the fact that in the earlier generations, people had the same question, even though the answer was the same. And they answered, in other words, the fact that in the earlier generations also struggled with, is our Mishnah only Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Yossi? And the earlier Chachamim needed to give an answer, no, kan lamaisis and kan leklayim. So you should not have been staring at the Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi. You should have answered him. So the Gemara is making a critique on Rabbi. Okay, next. The second shidduch in the Mishnah, So'idim and Shiboilus Shul. Barley and oats are the same. Says the Gemara that after you finish the whole Mishnah, the Mishnah gave a total of 6 pairs, 12 items. Rabbi Yosef, originally, we have this in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, says that Rabbi Yochanan says the words Kulain, Zugais, Zugais. All are pairs. In other words, you could have read the Mishnah. That all of the 12 plants in the Mishnah, all of them are allowed to be planted one with the other. So Rabbi Yochanan is saying, no, that's not the pshat in the Mishnah. You have to read 2. They are a pair. They could be planted with each other, but they may not be planted with others.
You can't plant wheat with...
You can't plant chitim with so'idim. Now, 1 second. Where did he get it from? Now I want to go back. That's what I think Rabbi Yochanan got it from. That why did Rabbeinu HaKadosh say Eina Kalayim Zebazah twice? That was the question we asked yesterday. Right. Think about it. If the Mishnah would have said Hachitim v'Hazunim Hasiyonim Sheboy L'Shual Hakusman v'Hashifain Halpul v'Hasapir etc. And the Mishnah at the end, after mentioning all of these 12 plants, if the Mishnah would have says Einam Kalayim Zebozeh, then Taka you would have thought that all of the 12 are allowed to be planted. The Rebbe says, no, chitim and zunim einam kalayim zebozeh. It's like a period, meaning only they're not kalayim. With others, they are kalayim. Now he already clarified, that Rabbeinu HaKadosh clarified, that every pair of 2 is a zug, only allowed to be with each other. No one is allowed to be with someone else. Beautiful. That's the answer to the question, I think. Now, there's one thing that we have to add, that we have to, if you didn't learn it, you wouldn't know it. Our Mishnah enumerated 12 plants. Like we mentioned, today on Daf Beis, Amud Beis, we're going to learn Halacha Beis. On Daf Gimel, we're going to learn Halacha Gimel. Then the first and the second and the third Mishnah, they speak all about more plants. No, we're in the middle of this. By the way, Halacha Daled also speaks, when it speaks about already trees, and we'll speak about it when we get there about the dinim of grafting. Grafting is not the same. We spoke about it yesterday in the words of introduction. But we have 3 Mishnayos in. So the Gemara is asking, this statement of Rabbi Yochanan, was it ma called pirka is amrat? Did he speak about it regarding halacha beis and halacha gimel? That in the next 2 Mishnayos, and whenever the Mishnah gives pairs, there also only that pair is excluded from the Isur of Kalayim. But in the same Mishnah, one from group Aleph with another from group Beis or Gimel or Dalet may not be planted together. The limitation was on the whole Pedic. The whole Pedic doesn't mean the whole Pedic Aleph, but it means on all of the Mishnayos that add more pairs, or maybe only on our Mishnah. Masha Enkin, in the Mishnah we're going to learn today on that Beis Amud Beis, maybe Rabbi Yochanan will be more lenient. So we just want to clarify what Rabbi Yochanan said. So answers the Gemara, I'll tell you. Min ma da Amar Rav. Rav says, now I just want to quickly remind everyone that in Bavli Psachim Daf Lametes, the Mishnah, all the way on top of the Amid, goes through the 5 types of herbs, of bitter herbs, that halachically are good for one to fulfill the mitzvah of eating mother. And the Mishnah writes, Chamisha Yerakais Sha'adam Yoise Bahen Chayvase Pesach are. I just want to remember the first one the Mishnah mentions is Chazeres, and the Gemara over there goes through every one in the Mishnah, and the Gemara gives in Aramaic what it is. Chazeres is chasa. Chazeres is lettuce. L'choyre Chazeres is the romaine lettuce that we call. The next one in the Mishnah is called Tamcha. Tamcha, according to most, is Tchirein. Psachim Daf Lamed Tes Amadal. The third one over there is Charchavina. Charchavina, the Gemara says, is some sort of vine that grows up and wraps around palm trees. The fourth one in the Mishnah there is Ulshin. Let's go with endives. I know there are many, there are different opinions as what it is. And the final one is Murad. You think Murad is either wormwood or muttered is a generic term for any type of bitter leaf. And that's the way we paskin. That means if you go to a location where people even went Angolas, they went to Americas, they went to new countries. Sometimes they found themselves in a place where they didn't have the traditional romaine lettuce, but they had a plant, they had a yerek that was known to be very bitter, leafy. That's good. It's the most similar to the chazeres, to a lettuce. If it's not leafy, then it's the most similar to tamcha, to chrein. Anyways, that's what the Mishnah says. So now, Rav said regarding that Mishnah, Chamisha Yirak Shadim Pesach. I want you to know, Kula Mutarim Li Zara Ba'arugam. They are allowed to be planted in a single patch. The Amrin, and after Rav made that statement, Masechtas Pesachim, the Chevron, the Yeshiva says, Hadodera Pligal Rabbi Yechanan. Okay. Now, what is that? What are we talking about? Guys, turn to that Beis Amid Beis. We're going to learn it today, I know, but look inside Halacha Beis. So when the Mishnah continues to enumerate more, the Mishnah speaks about Chazeres, right? I'm not talking about the first. The first one is Kishus and Malafafine. You see that? The second group in the Mishnah is Chazeres and Chazeres Galin. The third one will be Ulshin, Ulshei Sada. You can stop over here. So you see the Mishnah mentions Chazeres and Ulshin, but they're in different Shidduchim groups. You get it? Now let's say, when Rav made a statement, he says, Rav argues with Rabbi Yechanan. What do they mean? That's what they mean. Because we wanted to know whether Rabbi Yechanan's statement was only on Halacha Aleph or on the whole page. It must be on the whole page. So Rabbi Yechanan also, when he learned Halacha Beis, he's saying that Chazeres can only be planted with Chazeres Galin. But Chazeres cannot be planted with any other of the groups enumerated in the Mishnah, which would include Ulshin. When he learned Pesachim, in the Mishnah Pesachim, you have 5 types, which includes Chazeres and Ulshin. Rav is saying that they are allowed to be planted together. Now it fits. So now they said, Rav argues with Rabbi Yechanan. If Rabbi Yechanan's statement only would have applied to Halacha Aleph, but when it comes to Halacha Beis and Halacha Gimel, Rabbi Yechanan didn't make a statement, then how would you say Rav argues with Rabbi Yechanan? Then they both might have agreed that in Halacha Beis, all of the 14 items are allowed to be planted one with the other. The fact that they said that Rav argues with Rabbi Yechanan clarifies that Rabbi Yechanan's statement that we just had isn't only for Halacha Aleph, but it's for the whole page. Gavaldik. Atkan version number 1. Now you have another whole girsa. It's amazing. Not only are there many girsois in the Yerushalmi, the Gemara itself has another girsa. That Rebbe Ba, right, Rabbi, in the name of Rav, what we had until now, B'Shem Rabbi Yechanan, now we have B'Shem Rav. Says, Kulam Zugay Zugais. Wow. Zugay Zugais means again that only one with the other. Only Chitim and Zunin. Only So'idim and Shebayla Shual. Only those two, but not one with the other. So now the Gemara says, now I have a problem. Now it seems like Rav is contradicting himself. Come on, when we learned about the 5 types of mother, Rav just said Kulam in Echad. And over here, Omar, Achin, Rav is saying over here that only one is allowed to be planted with the other. So then, Rav said it also on Halacha Beis. So that means in Halacha Beis, when the Mishnah says Chazeres, the wild Galin, and Ulshei Sada, but Chazeres and Ulshin are not allowed to be planted together. So Rav is contradicting himself. So answers the Gemara. Now we'll introduce the Gemara sign. And for those of us who learned the Rambam, we are very familiar with it. Answers the Gemara, Loi de Rav Omar Kulan min Echad. Even though Rav said, when he learned the Mishnah Pesachim, his words were Kulan Mutarim Lizara Ba'aruga. They may be planted in a patch. Something that is allowed to be planted in the same patch, B'chlal doesn't mean it's not Kalayim. No. It means Lo Yomar Ela Mini Yerake saying V'kulan Mitarim Lizara Ba'aruga. So we're going to have, Chevre, a couple of daf ahead in the way we have our pagination on daf Chav Gimel Amid Beis, Mesechtas Kalayim, that in one patch that's only 6 by 6 tfachim, you are able to plant 5 species of Yerakos, different species, Kilei Zeroyim, if they are planted in a way that the observer who looks at the patch sees that they were not mingled, there was no marasayin, there's no issue of appearance, they can be planted even though they're one near the other, as we'll learn later. That if
Can't
you
you put a
plant it in
sign?
this,
Can you put a sign? Can you put a sign with an
you
arrow
don't have to.
this
You don't
way?
have to put up sign. You don't have to put up a sign. We learned this. You already. You had the picture for this. We're going to get to something about it later. But 1 second. Now there's a layer to that. When do we say that in a patch of 6 by 6 tefachim you are allowed to plant up to even 5 types of vegetables because you are able to make them for the formation of them is ba'oifen that you see they're not connected one to the other. Only when you're planting yirakas, because people do plant vegetables in small patches. Anything in the category of zeroyim, of seeds, which are also included in the same kilei zeroyim, which is also connected to marasayin. But since people plant seeds in fields, people normally do not plant seeds in small patches. You plant wheat, you have a wheat field. You don't plant a little patch of 6, but you don't plant little amounts of wheat. So what Rav is trying to say is that all of the 5 items mentioned in the Sechtas Pesachim, they are all considered Yeraka. It's not only Benegei the Hilchas Marer. Yeraka is Benegei Hilchas Kalayim. And therefore, they can be planted together, not mingled together. Planted using the leniency that we find by Yerakos, that even 5 types can be planted in one patch because you avoid the Marasayim. And what Rav is saying is that if any one of the 5 types of murder would have been in the category of Zerayim, then they would not have been allowed to be planted in the 6 by 6 tefach patch, because Zerayim also Marasayin, but that's Marasayin. Because when people look at different types of seeds that were planted near each other, even if they are formatted differently, people say, they were mingled together. Because if they would have been planted separately, no one plants them in such a small area. You only plant them in a small area if you didn't care about them getting mingled. Okay. Now we're moving on to the Beis Amid Beis. So guys, the third category in the Mishnah was Pool and Sapir. Pool we said is Favabin. We touch Sapir, Nile Kaupi, Kaven is here, go get to work. Then the 4th Shidduch was Purkadon and Toifach, and the 5th, right, was Pool, Halavan, and She'u'is. Okay, this is all aside of the first one over there. Says the Gemara, what are these things? What's Pool? What's Sapir? What's Purkadon? What is it? So look how beautiful this is. Rabbi Yosi b'Shem Rabbi Chia Barvo. I want you to know that I found written al pinkosei on the tablet of Rabbi Hillel beRebbi Allahs what they are. But before we quote that which was found written, there's 2 versions as where exactly did Rabbi Hillel bar Allahs write it. Either he wrote it on his pinkos, on his tablet, or something even more beautiful. Rabbi Yoina says b'Shem Rabbi Chia Barvo that what? No, Ashkochan Ksiv al Koisla de Rabbi Hillel bar Allahs. That this Amoira, he wrote it on his wall. How beautiful is that? Because you're so into learning, and you hear information, and you are afraid you're going to forget it, and you don't have a tablet today. That means you don't have paper and pen. So what do? You write it on your wall. Even nicer. So, and what did he write, whether here or there? So we touched the word pool, he translated to Aramish, what Aramaic? The Aramaic of Yerushalmi is Aramaic mixed with Greek, just for the record. Unlike the Aramaic in the Babli, which is Aramaic mixed with Persian. Different Aramaic. Pila is Pul. Now, the Gemara, we don't go to the English, but at least the Sapir is Pishuna. The Purkadon, he just wrote down, is Gilboina. The Toifach is Milvasa. The Pul Alavan is Sarpavna. And the She'u is Prisilta. So now we know, if you know the Aramaic that was spoken in the Holy Land, now you would know exactly what it is. Okay. Now, that you see we will extrapolate that there were 2 Girsa'os in the Mishnah concerning the 5th group of Pul, Halavan, and She'u'is. So we have She'u'is. Others had the version She'u'in. So our Gemara says that which version is correct? Kena Masnisa, Halavan, and the next word is Shashu'is, right? The Lavan is white bean. We tied Shashu'is when we learned the Mishnah. We quoted the art scroll compiled from all the different commentators, black-eyed bean. Okay, so and that Shashu'is mitasav and not with anun. And now that we identified what the Mishnah is talking about, Amar Rabbi Yoina, the Lama Nikra Shema Sheshuis. Why is it called Sheshuis? Not Sheshuin, Sheshuis. Because the word Sheshuis means two things in the holy tongue. It means gladness, and the word Sheshuis means smooth. And this type of bean, let's assume that it's the black-eyed bean, it has both effects. That Amar Rabbi Yoina, why is it called Sheshuis? Number one, it gladdens the heart. It has some sort of sedative effect. Like Shashun, yeah. In other words, if a person is Marash Chayredik, by Chasidim, Machal Chaim. Here, they had no Lachaim, so they had the bean, they had Sheshuis. And also, Halechas as B'nei Ma'ayin, it purges the innards. It's a laxative. It smooths out your intestines. And they're two separate things. Not this and that. It has two different koiches, and because of that, we gave that bean the name of Sheshuis. And the Sheshuis, as I thought that maybe not. And that and the Pul Halavan, right? The white bean are considered B'negeya Hilchos Kalayim to be in the same species category.
So this is Shashuis, is this black-eyed bean?
All right. Says the Gemara, says the next out Mishnah. And again, like we mentioned, and whether it was Rabbi Yechanan, whether it was Rav, we already clarified that the same thing. Even though here there's a reason why the Mishnah says Einam Kalayim Zebozeh twice, because here, when it comes to the first Shidduch group, there's a Machlokes Tanoim. And to be consistent, says the Mishnah, Hakishus v'hamalafafayin Einam Kalayim Zebozeh. But on that, Rabbi Yehuda, the Tana says yes, Kalayim. Now, I'm going to say once that there's many opinions. What is Kishus? What is Malafafayin? Rashi in Bavli says that Kishus is a cucumber. So you don't know. The Rambam says the Malafafayin is a cucumber. Okay? Kishus, according to many, will be a certain type of bland tasting melon. We're going to go with that over here. And Malafafayin is some sort of cantaloupe or a sweet type of melon. There's so many different opinions. The best thing not to get tripped up is to say kishus and malafafayin. I'm mentioning melons because we'll get there today in the Gemara about mutations, about planting it with watermelon. It's so far off. If it's a cucumber, to me, a cucumber is so far krochen from a watermelon. It doesn't sound like it's shayach, one to mutate from the other, as we'll see soon. But let's just use the words kishus and malafafayin. Okay? So it's interesting that there is a machlokes tanoim whether they are two varieties of the same, that's the Tana Kama, or according to the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, no, Kalayim, because they're considered two completely separate categories, as we will see. Now, let's continue. So that was Shidduch number 1. All right, and from now on, we're going to have another 6. So this Mishnah will have a total of 7. It's like the first Mishnah had 6, but there was no arguments. Okay. Now the next group is Chazeres Galen. Let's go with we just said. Chazeres is a certain type of lettuce. Chazeres Galen, let's say, is wild lettuce. That already makes more sense. You know, the very fact that they have the same name, even though there's a Shem Levi, that's because they are of the same species, but it's a subspecies. So that's why it's not Kalayim. The next Shidduch is Ulshin. Either it's chicory or let's go, it's endives. There's different opinions what it is. And Ulshay Sada, wild chicory. The third is Kedeshin, leeks. Kedeshin Sada, wild leeks. The fourth Shidduch is Kuzbar, coriander. That already fits. And the Kuzbar Sada, wild or field coriander. The fifth is Chardal, mustard, and Chardal Mitzri, Egyptian mustard. The sixth is Dalas, a gourd, a pumpkin, Mitzris, a glass Mitzris, and Haremutzam. Okay. This type of gourd.
Rabbi, what are these pears? Forgive me.
These are pears, Kevan, that they are allowed to be planted together, mingled, be'erovin. Why? Because even though they have different names, halachically, they're not considered two different species. They're considered two varieties of the same species. And the final, the seventh, is Pul Mitzri, the Egyptian bean, and Charov and Carib bean. You can say, what are you talking about? Charav is we're not talking about a carob tree. Make it very clear that there is no prohibition planting right next to trees in the Holy Land, any type of grain, legume, and vegetable. There will be an Isur Doiraisa of grafting when it comes to trees, and even Chutz La'aretz, and according to many, Midoiraisa of Chutz La'aretz. It's a whole different thing, but here we're speaking about vegetables. So now that we have in our Mishnah the first machlokes in the Spedic, then again the group of Kishres and Malafafine, the Gemara wants to explain exactly what is behind the argument between the Tanakama / the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yudin bar Menashe, Divrei Chachamim, who hold that what? They hold that Einam Kalayim Zebozem. Why are they not Kalayim? Because Adam Noitel Ma'a Achas Mi Pitma Shel Kishus V'Noitam. If a person takes a seed from the top of this kishus and they plant it, it could mutate. It doesn't matter how rare or common. It's shaykh that it will mutate into an avatiyah, into a watermelon. So I'm just saying that again. I don't have any knowledge at all. That's why we're saying melon. It to me, in my limited mind, for a melon to become a watermelon, it's called a watermelon. Melon. For a cucumber to become a watermelon, anything can be. So let's go with that.
That way, the odds of these mutating is 1 in 1 zillion. I'm getting a little. A melon cannot become a watermelon in this universe.
Who told you that? Who told you that, Kevan? Where did you get this information? We're learning. Hello, open up the Torah. Yerushalmi Kalayim that Beis Amid Beis. Nachamal, listen. Adam noitel ma'a achas mi pitmo shel kishus v'noita v'nas avatiyah. And we're not done yet. It's also possible that a person should take a seed, but it has to be from the pitim. It has to be from the top of the avatiyah and plant it, and it can turn into a malafafine. So here we go, guys. So not only, listen to this, we're learning a few things. You see, the Googling, the checking up, look at the guys. Google has to be modified to the emes, not the other way around, just for the record. So we're being machadash a big thing. Our Mishnah spoke about a shidduch of 2. Mitamol, we are triangulating over here the watermelon. What we are saying is that if B could mutate from A, it's never going to be kalayim. And more, if C can mutate, not from A, if C can mutate from B, then A and C are not going to be kalayim. You understand that we should dance from this. You know, the Mishnah is saying kishus and malafafine are not kalayim, l'tanakama. What that implies as a pshita, that kishus and avatiyach, avad are not kalayim. Avatiyach and malafafine, of course, not kalayim. Even kishus and malafafine, you don't go from kishus to malafafine. You have to go through the watermelon. You got it. We laugh. The cave is beautiful. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, why does Rabbi Yehuda argue? Says the Gemara, Ikarei Kalayim. Now he's speaking about a malafafine, whatever it is. Okay, so we said malafafine is a sweet, a cantaloupe. That the cantaloupe itself is a kalayim. Where does the cantaloupe come from? It's that Adam Noitel Ma Achad Zavatiyah. It came from if you take a seed from a watermelon, and you take a seed from the top of a tapuach. Again, for the record, tapuach does not mean an apple tree. It zicher not. We're not talking about grafting. We're speaking about a type of melon that's called a tapuach. If you take a avatiach melon and a tapuach melon and you put them b'toich guma achas, behein this achadim, if they fuse together, what comes out? It becomes the malafafine. So hold on a second. This is amazing. Rabbi Yehuda holds that an item that is in itself a product of kalayim cannot be say, I can plant it with a watermelon. I can plant it with a tapuach. You can't do that. Once you create kalayim, and like we said, you're allowed to eat kalayim even with the rabbanon. Once you made a kalayim, now it's a min b'fnei atzmai.
What's an example today?
A tangerine.
Tangerine is a what?
Is a kalayim. And you can't say if tangerine came from, I'm giving a bad mashal because I'm speaking about trees. you can't graft a tangerine into an orange tree. It came from the orange tree. Once something becomes kalayim, it becomes a min b'fnei atzmai. And once it's a min b'fnei atzmai, that's why you can't it's gavaldik.
You're allowed to have it even if the yid did it?
What was that? Yeah.
Is there a difference with the mutation of, let's say, the watermelon itself and the mutation the scientists create, let's say, grapefruit or other
Scientists
fruits?
creating is kalayim. Very good. In other words, whenever the cloning issue became an issue, so the big question, everything you bring it to this Masech of kalayim. But here we're learning there's the possibility of a mutation, and there is the probability of it being a crossbreed. A crossbreed is considered a sug b'fnei yatzmai. Guys, let's just learn the top two lines on Lav Gimel Amud Aleph. That I want to bring a raya that the malacha fine, which is what we're talking about, the malacha fine is a crossbreed. That's why why is it called a malafafine? Because where did the word come from? It's amazing. Because in the Greek language, mellow is an apple. Again, whether we're speaking about an apple, even though I just looked at the Marafulda, he says we're talking about an apple. Whether it's a certain type of vegetable, a certain type of melon, that's called the apple melon. That's called mellow. Pepine is watermelon. Melapepine, the fact that you have in Greek, the word melapepine is a composite of the apple and the watermelon is a raya that it's not a mutation, it's a crossbreed. And that Yesoid is, that's the big thing, that a crossbreed becomes a type on itself. I'll give you a raya from that. If the crossbreed will always be considered both parents, then how will you be allowed to plant a crossbreed? You're making more kalayim. Is that raya? Once it became kalayim, now it's a min b'fnei atzmai. That's a good raya. And therefore, you cannot plant it with either of its parents. You can plant it with it.
Is crossbreed and cross-pollination the same?
Is crossbreed and cross-pollination the same? Yes.
Even though one is an accident.
Very good. Clearly. Accident and on purpose, and in both cases, by kilei zeroyim, the product, the baby, the mamzer is allowed to be eaten.
Correct, Rabbi.